Black Knowledge Matters group has been meeting, and we put together this schedule, and it goes all the way into June. And one of the nights that we came up with was this night tonight, poetry night, spoken word. And I happen to know that my friend Katabazi is a poet, and I've been to services where he's given poetry, and then he actually wrote a poem for me, which I'm very touched. I have to say, and and so tonight is spoken word, it's poetry, it's something that goes back. When you look in Stolen Legacy by Dr. George Jim James, he talks about the 7 liberal arts, and the 7 liberal arts include rhetoric. Usually, when people are using that word, it's not very complimentary. I heard this person's rhetoric, and it's there, but actually, and I looked this up. It says rhetoric is the art of persuasion, which, along with grammar and logic, is one of the 3 ancient arts of discourse. Rhetoric aims to study the techniques writers or speakers utilize to inform, persuade, or motivate particular audiences in specific situations. And Dr. Asa Hilliard is actually the one, by me listening to him, I actually was able to focus on rhetoric. When I think of poetry, I think rhetoric, I think poetry definitely falls under that category of informing, persuading, and motivating audiences. It's done so in the Black community, even in the book called the Bible. It says, I believe that's John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God in the beginning, or words to that effect. And now I'd like to introduce my good friend. I've known him since 1981, and I have a little story. He's not only a great poet, but when we had Dr. Ben to come to Wose back in the day, back then we didn't have Sister Judy or Sugar D to make flyers for us. There was no app, and so so I'm sorry, I removed myself from the spotlight. I shouldn't have done that. Yeah, somebody put me in the spotlight. Let me get back. So we didn't have the apps that we did, and so I found out that Brother Katabazi was an artist, and so I asked him to make a flyer for the Dr. Ben lecture that we were having at Wose, and he came over my house. I was living in Albany then, and I had one of Dr. Ben's books, and I watched him just sit there at my kitchen table, freehand, and do this fantastic flyer. And it was through that advertisement that we were able to get, I think, over 400 people that night. It was a big crowd, and it actually put Wose on the map. And I'll always remember that, Katabazi, along with I think that was New Year's Day, 1982. You and Arlene invited us over to your house, and we watched this Bob Marley video.
Yeah, we sure did.
Arlene was working at KQED, and she found it at the top of a heap that they were going to throw out, and she knew we would like it. So anyway, I want to introduce my friend, Brother Katabazi Coleman.
Thank you, Minister Imhotep, and good evening, everybody in the viewing audience. Um, yes, my name is Katabazi, and I've been writing poetry for more than 25 years, and it, it 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 appealed to me in the way that words can influence and can impact people. And as it turns out, poetry has indeed been around a very long time. In fact, um, they can't really place a date on poetry because it's believed that poetry came out of the oral traditions. And so you haven't been able to fix a date on it. And when you talk about poetry, it means different things to different people, and people have probably defined it differently. But essentially and fundamentally, poetry is an expression that is spoken or written and delivered in such a way that it leaves an impression. But I think that Wikipedia does gives us a very good definition, a very good working definition for the term poetry. And Wikipedia says poetry as an oral art from likely predates written text. The earliest poetry is believed to have been recited or sung, employed as a way of remembering oral history, genealogy, and law. Poetry is often closely related to musical traditions, and the earliest poetry exists in the forms of hymns and other types of songs, such as chants. As such, poetry is a verbal art. Many of the poems surviving from the ancient world are recorded prayers or stories about religious subjects matter. But they also include historical accounts, instructions for everyday activities, love songs, and fiction. And so after doing some research and in my own thinking, because my poetry has been influenced by the old traditionalists. I like the way that they spoke. I like the way that they invoked their God. I like the way that they offer praises to the ancestors. And so poetry has come this long distance, and one more person speaks on poetry. This is a brother professor from the University of Uyo in Nigeria. His name is Joseph A. Ushe. And Dr. Ushe says that this perspective contextualizes the historical, political, and digital culture dynamics that shape both written and oral forms of literature of Africa, past and present. If African poetry depends on community and social setting, it can be said that ore grows out of tradition and keeps tradition alive. Present day spoken word and performance poetry with its multidimensional forms of expression, incorporating song, storytelling, narratives, rhythm, rhyme, verse, movement, dance, plus the modern media forms of digital recording, composition, and video projection can be viewed as a logical evolution of the ancient indigenous oral traditions. And I think at this point, I just like to say a little bit about these oral traditions. When you talk about the oral traditions, you're talking about the griots. You're talking about the jelly or the jolly. And it has been said that that every pharaoh of a major kingdom or every king of a major kingdom had a griot, and that every griot was attached to a king or pharaoh of a kingdom. Now, the griots were trained to memorize incredible narratives of royal descent, the laws, boundaries, weddings, major events, the kingship line, all of that, these guys, and these would date back several generations. And these men would walk around with this kind of information in their heads. And so because there was so much information that they had to absorb, they needed to be able to train the next griot up at a young age. And so they would begin training these youngsters at around about the age of 8. And also because of the need to have these students close at hand, most of the kids were within the family. So the griots formed a type of social caste where you had to be kind of born into the family to be a griot, because you needed to be in close proximity of the griot as a trainee, because they was constantly sharing information and getting feedback from the youngsters. And so those griots, they were not attached to a kingdom or to a king. They kind of became the marauding musicians, traveling troubadours. They would go from town to town singing and recounting the histories of these communities. And it is believed that they gave these griots, these jolly men, they gave birth to the rhyming and the rhythm that we find in poetry, because they use that technique as a tool to memorize tremendous amount of information. So if you went to a griot and asked a griot a specific question about lineage or about the family name, he may not be able to go directly to that source. But what he might do is sit and sing a song. And within that song would be the answer to that person's question or inquiry. So they were very well respected within the community because they had a whole bunch of information. And so that is what helped fuels my approach in terms of finding my poetic voice. It has been these Or griots that has been my inspiration for a lot of that. Now, I have been published in over, I think maybe about 11 or 12 different anthologies, and most of them of which are out of print. And so I want to read this poem, but first let me say that I'm very excited about participating in the program of Poetry on Saturday. Some excellent poets on that program. Should be a lot of fun. But tonight, and I was thinking about my first poem. And the first poem that I recited was when I was about 13 years old. And I was part of a public speaking competition. And I must give credit for Mrs. Catherine Caldwell. She was my English literature teacher. And this is Jim Crow. This is in Jim Crow, Kentucky. And I don't know, she saw something in me, and she came to me and asked me to participate in this public speaking competition. And she worked with me and helped me select the piece. In fact, she selected the piece that I'm going to read to you all shortly. She selected the piece, and she made arrangement for me to get to a microphone and learn and get comfortable with the microphone, because we didn't have a microphone in a little tiny school that I went to. And so, yeah, one night in Lexington, Kentucky, during the state regional public speaking competition, I was there. I had worked my way up through the local districts, and so I was there with a whole bunch of other speakers. but I was only about 13, so I was in the junior division. And the moderator of the program introduced me and gave the name of the poem that I did, and I recited the whole poem, which I couldn't do today. And so I think today and tonight, yeah, I want to share this poem with you. You've heard it before, and hopefully you enjoy hearing it again. The poem was by James Weldon Johnson, and it was called Creation. So when I was introduced, I was a little shaky, but I stepped to the podium and I said, and God stepped out on space and he looked around and said, I'm lonely. I'll make me a world. And far as the eye of God could see, darkness covered everything, blacker than 100 midnights down in a cypress swamp. Then God smiled and the light broke and the darkness rolled up on one side and the light stood shining on the other. And God said, that's good. Then God reached out and took the light in his hands, and God rolled the light around in his hands until he made the sun. And he set that sun ablazing in the heavens. And the light that was left from making the sun, God gathered it up into a shining ball and flung it against the darkness, spangling the night with the moon and stars. Then down between the darkness and the light, he hurled the world. And God said, that's good. Then God himself stepped down, and the sun was on his right hand, and the moon was on his left. The stars were clustered about his head, and the earth was under his feet. And God walked. And when he trod, his footstep hollowed the valleys out and bulged the mountains up. Then he stopped and looked and saw that the earth was hot and barren. So God stepped over the edge of the world and he spat out the seven seas. He batted his eyes and the lightning flashed. He clapped his hands and the thunders roared and the waters above the earth came down. The cooling waters came down. Then the green grass sprouted and the little red flowers blossomed. The pine trees pointed his fingers to the sky and the oak spread out his arms. The lakes cuddled down the hollows of the ground and the rivers ran down to the sea. And God smiled again and the rainbow appeared and curled itself around his shoulders. Then God raised his arm and he waved his hand over the sea and over the land and he said, bring forth, bring forth. And quicker than God could drop his hand, fishes and fowls and beasts and birds swam the rivers and the seas, roamed the forests and the woods, and split the air with their wings. And God said, that's good. Then God walked around, and God looked around on all that he had made. He looked at his sun, he looked at his moon, and he looked at his little stars, and he looked at his world with all its living things. And God said, I am lonely still. Then God sat down on the side of a hill where he could think. By a deep, wide river, he sat down. With his head in his hands, God thought and thought till he thought, I'll make me a man. Up from the bed of the river, God scooped the clay, and by the banks of the river, he kneaded him down. And there the great God Almighty who lit the sun and fixed it in the sky, who flung the stars to the most four corners of the night, he rounded the earth in the middle of his hand. This great God, like a mammy bending over her baby, kneeled down in the dust, toiling over a lump of clay, till he shaped it in his own image. Then into it he blew the breath of life, and man became a living soul. Amen. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Well, thank you. Well, I was fortunate,
Ashe,
lucky,
ashe.
good, but I won first place at the
That's
competition.
great. That's great. That's great.
And so I know we have a lot of different videos on the program, and so if time permits later on, I'll come back and I'll do an original poem, and Like I said before, on Saturday night, we all would be there, you know, dropping original poems. And so, Minister Imhotep, I'm going to toss it back to you.
Oh man, thank you. Thank you for sharing that story. And thank you for getting out of Lexington, Kentucky. Just
Yes, yes.
I, that could be a Black Knowledge Matters just in and of itself, I'm sure. As I'm looking at the screen, I see one of our poets that we're going to have on Saturday night. Her name is Stajabu, and she's part of a mother-daughter duo called Straight Out Scribes. And this is one of they have like about 4 or 5, possibly more books. And I like this one here that's talking about taking names and pointing fingers. And Stajabu, would you just take your camera off? Put your camera on for a minute so that everyone can see you there, Sister Stajabu. There you are. How are you doing?
Not too shabby.
That's good. It's good to see you. I'm glad you could join us today. Very glad you could join us today. And we're going to be featuring you and Sanana tomorrow. I mean, excuse me, on Saturday. But I'm so glad you could join us today. You went mute for a minute. I don't know why.
We have 8 books.
You have 8 books, and then you have you have a CD, right?
2 CDs.
And 2 CDs. All right.
Excellent.
All right.
And we're looking forward to hearing everybody too.
Yes.
Yes.
And you know the one I want to hear. I want to hear the Tude. That's my favorite, and my kid's favorite is Rhythm Chant. Everybody loves Rhythm Chant, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So you're putting in a request ahead of time?
I am.
Okay.
I'm putting a request ahead of time.
I want you to know something, that Black Fire this time has just been released. It's an anthology of some of the baddest poets, and Straight Out Scribes is included. And the Tude was one of the poems they picked to put in that book.
See what I mean?
Right on.
Amazing. Yeah.
All right. Give thanks.
Right.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yes, peace in her too.
Peace. And now we're going to ask Brother Jeff. I'm going to have to send Brother Jeff a gift card from Queen of Sheba restaurant because he put together all of these videos, with the exception of one. Brother Bill helped out, so I'm glad for that. So the first one is coming up, and then after him, I'm going to ask Brother Damu to share one of his poems. The first one is coming out is by Claude McKay. So, Brother Jeff, would you share Claude McKay? And I think this is Claude McKay's own voice.
If We Must Die is the poem that makes me a poet among colored Americans. If we must die, let it not be like hogs, hunted and penned in an inglorious spot, while round us bark the mad and hungry dogs, making their mock at our accursed lot. If we must die, oh, let us nobly die, so that our precious blood may not be shed in vain. Then even the monsters we defy shall be constrained to honor us though dead. O kinsmen, we must meet the common foe. Though far outnumbered, let us show us brave, and for their 1,000 blows deal one death blow. What though before us lies the open grave? Like men, we'll face the murderous, cowardly pack, pressed to the wall, dying but fighting back.
Yes. One of my favorites.
That is the classic poem by Claude
Bow
McKay.
down my soul in worship, very low, and in the holy silences be lost. Bow down before the marble man of woe. Bow down before the singing angel host. What jeweled glory fills my spirit's eye? What golden grandeur moves the depths of me? The soaring arches lift me up on high, taking my breath with their rare symmetry. Bow down, my soul, and let the wondrous light of beauty bathe thee from her lofty throne. Bow down before the wonder of man's might. Bow down in worship, humble and alone. Bow lowly down before the sacred sight of man's divinity alive in stone. The tropics in New York, bananas ripe and green and ginger root, cocoa in pods and alligator pears, and tangerines and mangoes and grapefruit, fit for the highest prize at parish fairs. Set in the window, bringing memories of fruit trees laden by low-singing rills, and dewy dawns and mystical blue skies in benediction over nun-like hills. My eyes grew dim, and I could no more gaze. A wave of longing through my body swept, and hungry for the old familiar ways, I turned aside and bowed my head and wept.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Brother Jeff. That is the immortal Claude McKay in his own
Mhm.
voice. That's tremendous.
Yeah.
Um, so, you know, we were supposed to say this at the beginning, and I want to say it now. And this is what do you call that? A
A
disclaimer.
disclaimer.
There are some. So we're doing the history of poetry tonight, and there's there are poems that are going to be shared with, shall we say, colorful metaphors. If you get my meaning, and so I don't want anyone to be offended. But you know, coming up, we're going to have Brother Sudi Adamu Sudi Ali, and he's not going to use any colorful metaphors, I don't think. But the ones following him will be the last poets, and you just don't know what they'll say. All right, so give thanks. So, Brother Sudi, are you ready? And you can take yourself off mute. We'd love to hear you now. Are you there, brethren?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Oh, okay. I first of all, I want to apologize if people can't see me. I'm losing my sight, and it's hard for me to set things up, and so that you know you can see me, and also I have to situate myself so that the light falls a certain way so that I can read this poem. I don't know it by heart. But thank you for giving me the opportunity to read this poem. By way of introduction, it's a poem about a beautiful woman, amazing,
It's something off a high shelf.
named Renee Moore. That was her birth name. I don't know if anybody is familiar with her. But Renee Moore was a member of the Black Panther Party in Los Angeles. She later converted to Islam, changed her name to Samaya Hakim, but she was known affectionately as Peaches because she had a voice like Nina Simone and like 1,000 African villagers singing at one time. And I was fortunate enough to do fundraisers with Sister Peaches for the Black Panther Party in LA. Performed with her on several occasions. And Peaches was that sister who really saved the lives of her comrades when the LA Police Department surrounded the Black Panther headquarters and sent a barrage of bullets and all kinds of other deadly munitions into that building, set it on fire, and Sister Peaches and her comrades was in that building. And while her comrades said that they weren't going to take a chance of going out and giving themselves up, because the first in their memory was the murder of little Bobby Hutton only a few months before, when he and Eldridge Cleaver were caught in a hail of bullets in another house in West Oakland. This was when the police department and the FBI and the CIA was just had a massive campaign really to exterminate the Black Panther Party, and they did a unfortunately very massive job of doing that. But Sister Peaches decided to come out irregardless of knowing that she could be shot down like little Bobby Hutton, and she came out and they saved. She actually saved the day. There's a video that shows regularly on PBS that shows this very dramatic scene happening. They show it from time to time during Black History Month and other times when they give token representation to things that are happening and have happened in our culture. So this poem is about Sister Peaches. I wrote this poem because I just feel like people like her, unsung heroes, people don't know about them because they don't have the big names and they're high profile, but they are courageous people who have given their lives and they struggle to bring about the liberation of our people. So this poem was written in honor of Peaches, whose name was Samaya Hakeem. And it depicts Peaches as a personification of the wind, as a personification of the wind of change. The title of the poem is Song of Samaya, Song of Samaya. Samaya, east wind rising from the shore of Africa, unmasks the angry face of God. Samaya, raising terribly across the sea, whipping the placid waters of our tragic maiden voyage to wake the sleeping spirits of our long forgotten dead. Sing, O immortal voices of despair. Sing. Hear, O Black nation lost. Hear the ceaseless wailing, the sad song of our fathers, the voices and the voice of Samaya. East wind from Africa calling us home to freedom. Sing, Samaya. Samaya, wind of change sweeping over this wicked land. Hearken to her, listen closely. Feel her mighty righteous beat in the center of the storm, in the wake of life's defeats. Fight on is what she whispers, blowing fiercely in the streets. Fight on, she roared across the ocean to the slaves all bound in chains. Fight out, fight on, she roars in spite of pain, till victory is gained. Sing, oh, sing, Samaya. Ancient spirit of our fathers has touched the hearts and minds of many. Will you lend an ear to hear her song of freedom? Solemnly they ring in the air, crying out for justice, powerful, a prayer. A champion of justice, Sister Peaches was her name. Frail and weak, she fights for justice, resolutely just the same. Samaya, whistling through the trees, looked down on Peaches fair, decided she would give her voice to one so brave and rare. So she breathed her immortal song of love into our Peaches' soul, and she became Samaya Martin, and now her story's told. Now, when Peaches sings those freedom songs that lifts our hopes so high, Samaya sings in powerful voice that rises to the sky. And Samaya, blowing in the heavens, hears Samaya down below, descends and lifts her voice to sing of victory, I know. Sing, sing, Samaya. Pray for guidance in your songs. Pray for victory to come. Pray for justice. Pray for peace. Pray that Allah's will be done. Pray, Samaya. That's to my good friend, Samaya Hakim, also called Peaches. She was also the nephew of someone you probably do know, Geronimo Pratt.
Give thanks. Give thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Cody.
That's great history, great history. And yeah, I saw I saw a number of heads shaking up and down when you mentioned little Bobby Hutton. We still remember that. He was 16 years old. He took off his shirt, came out and had his hands up, but they shot him anyway. Thank you for sharing that poem with us, Brother Sudi. All right, now next coming up, we're going to have the last poets, and there are going to be some colorful metaphors, but we'll brave through it. All right, Brother Jeff. Yes.
When the revolution comes. When the revolution comes. When the revolution comes. When the revolution comes, some of us will probably catch it on TV with chicken hanging from our mouths. You'll know it's revolution because there won't be no commercial. When the revolution comes. When the revolution comes. When the revolution comes. Preacher pimps are gonna split the scene with the communion wine stuck in their back pockets. Faggots won't be so funny then, and all the junkies will quit their nodding and wake up when the revolution comes. When the revolution comes, transit cops will be crushed by the trains after losing their guns, and blood will run through the streets of Harlem, drowning anything without substance when the revolution comes. When the revolution comes. When the revolution comes. When the revolution comes. I hope pearly white teeth fall off the mouths that speak of revolution without reference. The course of revolution is 360 degrees. Understand the cycle that never ends. Understand the beginning to be the end, and nothing is in between but space and time that I make or you make to relate or not to relate to the world outside my mind, your mind. Speak not of revolution until you are willing to eat rats to survive. When the revolution comes. When the revolution comes. When the revolution comes, guns and rifles will be taking the place of poems and essays. Black cultural centers will be forts supplying the revolutionaries with food and arms when the revolution comes. When the revolution comes, white death will fall off the walls of museums and churches, breaking the lie that enslaved our mothers. When the revolution comes. When the revolution comes, Jesus Christ is going to be standing on the corner of Lenox Avenue and 125th Street, trying to catch the first gypsy cab out of Harlem. When the revolution comes. When the revolution comes, Jew merchants will give away matzo balls and gefilte fish to anyone they see with an afro. Frank Shippen will give away the Apollo to the first person he sees wearing a blue dashiki. When the revolution comes. When the revolution comes, afros are going to be trying to straighten their heads, and straighten heads are going to be trying to wear afros when the revolution comes. When the revolution comes. When the revolution comes. When the revolution comes. But until then, you know and I know niggas will party and bullshit and party and bullshit and party and bullshit and party and bullshit and party. Some might even die before the revolution comes.
Wow. That's one of those classics,
Mhm.
and I hope no one was offended by some of the language that was used, but that was coming from the '60s, the Last Poets. And as we prepare for our next one, I don't know if which someone will say, my siblings had to sneak to listen to the Last Poets. My parents
Yes.
liked the language. Yeah, yes, indeed. Uh, that's so true. Also, Brother Bill has put in the chat the how you can get uh, uh, straight out scribes some of their books. That's put in the chat if you'd like to if you'd like to purchase their books. They're all great. I was looking around. I have all these books around me, and this was the one I could find. But I have some. Uh, I have like about 4 or 5 all over my home. Uh, Brother Katabazi, do you have one of your poems that you could share with us before we listen to the Soledad prison poet that's coming up?
I do. I do. Um, this is a poem that's wishful, that's hopeful, that's forward looking, as most of my poems are. I like for my poems to be inspirational and hopeful. And in this piece, I say, I want to write a poem that resonates in the hearts and minds like the sound of 10,000 djembe drummers drumming the same rhythm at the same time in the same place, listening to it bounce and pop off the peaks and slopes of Mount Kilimanjaro, gliding down its massive sides and out onto the lands below, encapsulating the people in a oneness. A poem that unfolds like florals of endless colors, rising up in the vibrancies of green, yellow, and reds, swirling, mixing, forming all the colors of the spectrum, filling the mind like the expanse of the universe. Visual senses expand like a nuclear explosion that spreads from horizon to horizon, all spiraling out of an infinitesimal black dot. While food aromas fill the nostrils, paint the palates with great promise, mouth-watering anticipation of succulence, the licking of lips, widening of the eyes, the ever-demanding stomach, tittered to the aromas. Let's dance the night away in a hot reggae dance hall, feeling the beat and the heat of the room as pulsating, jumping, twisting, dripping, energized bodies respond to the driving music, bass drum and scratchy guitar producing that energy of gaiety and blissful joy. Like the rush of a mighty tsunami that sweeps away many of the current things while laying the foundation for the new, scrubbing the mind of falsehood and lies that hold captives the spirit of self, holding firm to remnants of the sacred that feeds our hopes, dreams, and visions. A poem of bliss and contentment that washes over you like a calming breeze, like a meditative trance, filling you with the knowing of things previously unknown, that heartens our resolve to be free and restored. Yeah, I want to write a poem.
Give thanks. All right, all right. Hey, it's one of those things where you feel like you want to do this. When you hear those poetry, that's the way they used to do at the club. Now, coming up, we're going to have. So there were two brothers, and I can only think of one's name. And that's Laj Daly, and his co-poet. I can't think of his name. He passed away first, and then Lodge actually passed away not too long ago, within the last 4 or 5 years, I believe. But they were known as the Soledad Prison Poets, and we're going to hear from them coming up now. Uh, Thank you, Baba Jeff. Go ahead.
Right now is quiz time. Are y'all ready for quiz time? I don't think y'all ready. I can hear you. Can I hear you? Are you ready for quiz time? All right. Make me know y'all ain't jiving. Say it one more time. Are you ready? Now, I would like to know by a show of hands.
Can't hear it
How
myself.
many of you ever heard of Dracula? That sucks blood out of people, right? Okay. In our midst roams another vampire. Instead of sucking blood out of people, he sucks money.
Apologies for this because the sound that I recorded was low and I didn't realize it. So I have everything on max, so you can't hear it. I'm sorry.
Y'all going jab me. I said, would you like to interview him? All right, I'm gonna dim the lights a little bit. Come on out, Drac. He wanna talk to you.
You can turn up your volume. Hopefully that'll help.
In this world lives a greedy, capitalistic vampire. Sucking money out of poor people's pockets is his only desire. With a flash of teeth. And how do you do? Before you know, he'll turn any neighborhood into a ghetto. Mr. Vampire, tell everybody who you work for. I work for the rich and work against the poor. The majority of the world has been bitten by this vampire before. In any society where you find the rich, take a real good look, and you'll see something they all show. Ghetto, I did it. Ghetto, I did it. Ghetto, I did it. The after effect of a body drained of blood, a starving stomach feeding on itself, a river of mud. The results of taking from the majority and giving to the few. Physical evidence of what the greedy vampire can do. You don't have to be a doctor to diagnose this sickness and confusion. All the ghetto need is a money transfusion. The capitalistic vampire. He hides by the cash register, patiently awaiting, licking his lips in anticipation. There's nowhere to escape from that money-hungry vampire in that long black cape. When he looks at you with those greedy red eyes, all your money is lost. And there's nothing you can do to protect yourself. You can't even stop him with that old rugged cross. Karate! He'll tell you he's your friend. And for most people, that's a relief. He'll smile and try to embrace you and sink in his teeth. He has the poor people of the world gripped in his paws. The innocent blood of millions drips from his jaws. Every community he's been to fears his name, because once I bite into him, they all look the same. Places with the smallest amount of money and the highest prices, the longest waiting lines and the hardest sacrifices. Places where there's more police than people, more actors than roles, more hunger than food, and more shit than assholes. I'm tired of poor people being labeled criminals for trying to survive. Mad when they stop struggling against this vampire in order to stay alive. In the holy name of business, competition, and free enterprise. He kills, he steals, he enslaves and he lies. He creates names and labels to stamp on the poor, to keep them confused and separated while he takes more. He builds fences and jails and passes laws that make him right. He starts wars to benefit the rich but uses poor people to fight. He brings the lives out of people wherever he goes and then throws them in the trash can like empty bottles. If you're poor, you've been bitten by the capitalistic vampire before. He's in every ghetto drinking his fill, sucking all the juice out of those dollar bills. Seriously looking at world history and what's going on today can testify to all the evil he's done. So think about the information this poem just covered while we pause to ask these few questions. Who made the ghetto? What made poor people poor? Why are the ghettos so dry and pale looking? Who does the capitalistic vampire work for? The answers to these questions identify the problem, just like fingerprints points to the man. killing with their own two hands. Because the ghetto are victims of a capitalistic vampire called greed that lives and feeds on poor people's needs. Greed has always been the enemy, the cause, the reason, the cause. Until we drive a stake through this vampire's heart, poor people will continue to be poor. Got everybody on the whole. America, the pimp. Got everybody on the whole stroll. Even you selling different things. A good citizen is judged by how much money they have and what they sell and bring. Bodies for sale, disguises, skills, power, merchandise. Anything worth having got a price. Money is something that everybody who lives in America needs, regardless of sex, color, age, or creed. You don't get something for nothing in this world. Everything that keeps you alive is real. If you eat, got a roof above your head, then somebody has got to be paying the bill. Sisters and brothers, friends and enemies, we talking about money. That thing that keeps the so-called crooks and robbers hustling on the streets. That thing that keeps the so-called policemen faithfully walking this beat. That thing that keeps the crooked politician safely in his seat. Money got the power to change the way you feel. It can make you feel good, mama, or make you very ill. Without money, the teachers won't teach you what they know. Without money, you can't even be a wino. Without money, the sick can't get well. Without money, you can't even pay your bail. Without money, the hungry can't be fed. And without money, the undertakers won't even bury the dead. The root of all evil, the preacher said. So to save us from all this evil, he walks away with a pocket full of it on collection day. Now that ain't funny. Even God needs money. It takes money to spread love and hate. It takes money to party and celebrate. Listen to this, ladies. Romance without finance is nonsense. Did you hear what I said? We said romance without finance is nonsense. The cost of living keeps going up. Union lines and picket signs. Everybody needs more money to stay alive. It sure is funky. People gotta turn tricks for America the pimp to survive. Ain't it? Power to you.
All right. I want to thank Baba Jeff. No apologies. I'm the one that looked for that video. I was actually there that night at the Oakland Auditorium in 1977, and I like the line. One of my favorite lines in that poem, "America the Pimp," is "Romance without finance is nonsense," and I like to add that liberation without finance is nonsense. Liberation without finance is nonsense. Brother Damu, do you have one more that you can give us? Do you have one more poem that you can read for us, brother?
Oh, yes, I do, Mr. Imhotep. I was kind of at a quandary of what I should read. I think instead of reading The White Maniac, there's another poem I wrote. which I read one time at a Woze event on Galindo Street, as a matter of fact.
Wow.
But instead of reading that poem, I think I'm going to continue in the tradition of, not in the tradition, but I'm going to continue paying tribute to strong women who I love and respect. So this poem is a poem I wrote for my mother at a time when I was very much involved in the Black Power struggle. And I won't go any further than that, just to say that it had separated me from my family in a way I was very sad about. And I hadn't seen my mother in some time. So I wrote this poem for my mother. And the name of the poem is her name, Naomi. Naomi is a Hebrew name, and it means my pleasantness. And this is a poem I wrote for my mother. Naomi, my pleasantness. I've been pondering, dear mother, over just what I'd say to express my love in some special way. The best I can do to show you I care is to send you God's blessings and pray that He's there with you always in everything that you do, bringing joy, peace, and love, comforting you. I want to be near you. I miss you so much. Dear Lord, please keep us until I can touch. Your hands so blessed, your precious graying hair. On your doorsteps, I'll stand in your presence and stare. In your face at the wrinkles that consecrate your brow, in your eyes at the love that withstood somehow my boyhood shenanigans, my grown-up mistakes that too often left needless sorrow in their wake. Yet you forgave me in spite of my ways. God knows your prayers have lengthened my days. Fond memories ever fresh in my mind of you, your nature so warm and so kind. What manner of woman I've searched far and near, never to find another so dear as you, my beloved, my mother, my friend. The ties that bind us, no power can rend. Naomi, we call you, an old Hebrew name. Its meaning of goodness you loudly proclaim. By your generous giving, by the joy that you brought, doing so much for others as we all should and ought. It was harmony among all your children you sought, and it was love in the hearts of us all that you wrought. No task was too hard, no challenge so great that caused you to wonder or even hesitate. To give all you could, sacrifice dearly. You gave to us always, you toiled and strove yearly to provide us with shelter and with our daily bread and make certain we got some good sense in our head. When others forsook me, you stood by my side. In your presence, I always could come and abide. It's this godliness, loving forgiveness in you that makes me strive harder to be godly too. Naomi, my pleasantness, no words can say how my love for you grows stronger each day. May she rest in peace, my dear mother, Naomi.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. And, you know, as we were making the program and, you know, we were a little out of balance because most of the presenters, most of the speakers that we had were men. And Sister Judy had pointed that out, and Brother Sudi, someone just said beautiful poem. Somebody just put that in the chat. Beautiful poem,
Thank you.
and I'm sure a number of people would agree. But Sister Judy had pointed out that we didn't have any sisters presenting, and it's 6:05. We got Gil Scott Heron. He's going to be talking about poetry, blues, and poetry. We got Haki Matabuti, Black Woman. We might not do the whole thing. And then we have something from Deaf Poetry Jam, Saul Williams, Coded Language. And we have Sonny's Letter, which is from Linton Kwesi Johnson. And it's a letter to his mother. And then after that, we have Straight Out Scribes, I'm going to Start a Revolution. And then we're going to close out with Maccabees, Mother of Civilization. And so we're going to try to get all of that in. We might go over a little bit the 6:30 time, but let's go forward. And I think we might be ready with Gil Scott Heron, Blues and Poetry.
So I wanted to contribute myself. I was writing down and putting all the categories together. I ain't got no money. I ain't got no job blues. I ain't got no woman blues. And then I said, wait a minute. See, I don't want to waste no categories. I ain't got no money blues. I ain't got no job blues. I ain't got no woman blues. Hell, them the same thing. Because if I could get me a job, I could make me some money. I could call me a lady. I'd be doing a whole bunch better. So I put them all in the same category. But I wrote other pieces of blues information. Because what had happened was that I had found out later on, unfortunately, in my education about people like Langston Hughes, about people like Sterling Brown, about people like County Cullen and Gene Toomer and Claude McKay. And these people had taken the blues as a poetry form back in the 20s and the teens during the Harlem Renaissance, and they had fine-tuned the blues. They had sanded it down so that it became a remarkable sort of an art form. But what happened is that in many instances, we didn't learn about that. We learned about the kind of poetry that nobody could understand. Like on 17th Street, 9th Avenue, when I was a teenager, man, we didn't want to hear nothing about poetry. Somebody say something about poetry, we say, oh yeah, where's he at? Bring him over here. Because we was into shooting the jumper, and that was damn near all. So in the 9th grade, like a teacher sneaked up on us and put these pieces of paper on the table, told everybody to read them, and then tell her what we thought about it. So I said, well, it's all right. Shit, I'll try it. I looked at the poem said, what now upside the wall I see? A shadow of an image me. I said, well, God damn, let me read this again. What now upside the wall? In the back of the room, somebody said, hey, this must be deep. Because you know, like, this must be deep is like a drape that we throw over everything, you know, like what we must be, this must be deep means that, like, I recognize all of these words individually. But damn if I can get anything out of the order in which they currently appear. This must be deep. I mean, because you figure must be deep, it's in this book. You say, well, why the hell would they put it in this book if it didn't mean nothing? Because ordinarily you read that, don't mean nothing. You say, hey, this must be nonsense. But you don't want to say that with the teacher standing right next to you. Why you give me this, you know? So you say, hey, this must be deep. And what happens is that when a lot of folks get ready to write poetry, that's what they decide they're going to be, deep. They decide they're going to be poetic. So they come up to me, people come up to me sometimes and say, hey, read my poem. I read it. What now upside the wall I see. And the only thing I can say to them is, hey, this must be deep. Because like being influenced by the kind of poetry that we were all introduced to, people feel as though like the way to be poetic is to make sure that there's certain little parts of it can't nobody understand. Why would you need a poet to make things more complex? Two winos can make things more complex. One of them say to the other one, well, is it, well, is that you? And the other one look at him right serious and say, yeah. And they communicated. You see, if communication is what it's all about. those people sitting around watching it could have been two poets talking to one another. They didn't have a clue. So the idea became not only to use ideas that were familiar to people in the community, but to use the language that everybody could understand. Of course, this poetry was always put down as street poetry because, of course, that's where the people were. People were on the street, and these were the people that you wanted to communicate with. Did an idea one time about how often it is that folks brother and sister one another, and how rare it is that something actually comes out of that people can grasp onto. Did a poem about the fact that oftentimes the people who are doing the most talking and the kind of conversations that you run into around this neighborhood should be the ones doing the most listening. The poem we did was called Billy Green is Dead. The economy is in an uproar. The whole damn country is in the red. The taxi fares is going up. What? You say Billy Green is dead. The government can't decide on busing, or at least that's what they said. Yeah, I heard you when you told me. You said that Billy Green was dead. But let me tell you about these hot pants that this big leg sister wore when I was partying the other night. What you say? Billy took an overdose. Well, now, junkies will be junkies, but did you see Gunsmoke last night? Man, they had themselves a shootout and folks was dying left and right. At the end, when Matt was cornered, I had damn near give up hope. Why you keep on interrupting me? You say my son is taking dope. Well, then call the law and call the doctor. What you mean I shouldn't scream? My only son is on narcotics. Should I stand here like I'm pleased? Is that familiar, anybody? Check out what's inside your head, you see. Never seems to matter when it's Billy Green who's dead.
That is the great Gil Scott-Heron. And, my first introduction to Gil Scott-Heron was H2O Watergate Blues. That was my very first, and I know that The Revolution Will Not Be Televised was one of him, but my first one was H2O Watergate Blues. Anybody else heard that one, H2O Watergate Blues? That's I see Brother Henry nodding. Okay, Sugar D.
He came to Tuskegee one year that I was there, and that's when he did the Revolution and the one you just said. But he was something. I really it was enjoyable.
Yes. What were you going to say, John?
I said, I remember this one line out of the H2O Blues that Ag didn't know enough to stay out of jail.
If Nixon knew Agnew, would Agnew know enough to stay out of jail? Yes. I love that poem. That's great. Next coming up, and we're giving Baba Jeff a little time to switch from video to video, and he's doing an excellent job. The next poem that's coming up is Haki Madhubuti, and I think that's when I really started appreciating spoken word. Haki Madhubuti, has done a great literary contribution to the African American experience, with Third World Press, a lot of the prose that he has written. And I'm not sure, Jeff, are we ready for Gil Scott to come in?
Yes, we are, Brother Minister.
All right. Thank you, my friend. Let's listen to Black Woman. And we're not going to go all the way through it, Jeff. So, let's listen to it.
Our women, we begin with you. Black, beige, brown, yellow, black, and dark earth. We drop from your womb and joy screams, life giver. You're worlds apart from the rest. Our women. Imagine a warm breeze in any city in the West that would not choke you. Our women. Be white, Be mother, a worker, a professional lady, you still my lady, you still my lady. Come on, lady. Our women, of fruits and vegetables, of green and colors. Our women who do not burn their teeth and bodies with the blood of pigs and cattle or fried chicken on early Saturday morning after stopping at Bob's Place till 5 in the early light. Party was almost like a job, but we got motion. We got motion. We are the rhythm people. Our women, black women. Unusual lady, you say. Fine as all get out, you say. Finer than lemonade in the shade, we close to you, lady. Women of the autumn earth, mother of life, and I have never said, I love you. Love is not our word. Love is not our word. Love belongs to soap operas and comic books. Love is the true confession of the pale people from the winter's cold. We are the people of motion. Move on, motion. Love is a colorless substitute for motion and activity. Love is a white disguise for feeling and rhythm. Dance on, lady. Summer, summer, lady.
Black woman, we care about you.
All right, Baba Jeff. Let's fade that one out.
Black woman, we
All right. How many have heard that one? Haki Matabuti. Yeah, that's it's a classic, if only to me. But I love it. All right. You know, I was searching around the house. I found another one of Straight Out Scribes' book, This Queendom Come. And it goes back, wow, our friend Court Thomas actually did the graphics on this. Those of you that have visited, yeah, you're going to say something there, Stajava? Take yourself off mute. Take yourself off mute.
Yeah, excuse me, yeah. Court, remember Court?
Yes, I talk to Court all the time. I still talk to Court, yeah.
Give him my regards and tell him thank you.
Yes, I will. So this was the first book, right?
No, Bam.
Oh.
No,
Okay.
Crucial Comments and Vicious Verses.
Verses. Yeah, I have that around the house. It's around here. I'm gonna look for it. I'm gonna have it for Saturday. I'm gonna have it ready. Oh, hey, Radical. Oh, there's another one. All right. Oh, that's yours. That's yours, huh, John? John, I didn't know you had one. Wow, there's so much talent on this in this Zoom meeting. So we are ready with the next one. Brother Katabazi introduced this one. It's from Death Poetry Jam. Saul Williams talking about coded language.
Without any further shenanigan, please give it up for Saul Williams.
Whereas break beats have been the missing link connecting the diasporic community to its drum-woven past. Whereas the quantized drum has allowed the whirling mathematicians to calculate the ever-changing distance between rock and stardom, we do hereby declare reality unkept by the changing standards of dialogue. Statements such as keep it real, especially when punctuating or anticipating modes of ultra-violence inflicted psychologically or physically will henceforth be seen as retroactive and not representative of the individually determined is. Motherfuckers better realize, now is the time to self-actualize. Studies show that when a given norm is changed in the face of the unchanging, the remaining contradictions will parallel the truth. Equate rhyme with reason, sun with season, reject mediocrity. Your current frequencies of understanding outweigh that which has been given for you to understand. The current standard is the equivalent of an adolescent restricted to the diet of an infant. The rapidly changing body would acquire dysfunction and formative symptoms and could not properly mature on a diet of applesauce and crushed pears. Light years are interchangeable with years of living in darkness. The role of darkness is not to be seen as or equated with ignorance, but with the unknown and the mysteries of the unseen. Thus, in the name of Robeson, Godson, Hurston, Akhenaten, Hatshepsut, Blackfoot, Helen, Lenin, Kahlo, Kali, the three Marias, Tara, Lilith, Lord, Whitman, Baldwin, Ginsburg, Kaufman, Lumumba, Gandhi, Gibran, Shabazz, Siddhartha, Medusa, Guevara, Gurdjieff, Rand, Wright, Banneker, Tubman, Hamer, Holiday, Davis, Coltrane, Morrison, Joplin, Du Bois, Clark, Shakespeare, Rachmaninoff, Ellington, Carter, Gay, Hathaway, Hendricks, Cootie, Dickerson, Ripperton, Mary, Isis, Teresa, Hansberry, Tesla, Plath, Rumi, Fellini, Michaud, Nostradamus, Nefertiti, Laroque, Shiva, Ganesha, Yamaya, Oshun, Obatala, Ogun, Kennedy, King, Four Little Girls, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, Keller, Biko, Perón, Marley, Magdalene, Cosby, Shakur, those who burn, those still aflame, and the countless unnamed. We claim the present as the present, as the hereafter. We are unraveling our navels so that we may ingest the sun. We are not afraid of the darkness. We trust that the moon shall guide us. We are determining the future at this very moment. We know that the heart is the philosopher's stone. Our music is our alchemy. We stand as the manifested equivalent to 3 buckets of water and a handful of minerals, thus realizing that those very buckets turned upside down supply the percussive factor of forever. Let your children name themselves and claim themselves as the new day. For today, we are determined to be the channelers of these changing frequencies into songs, paintings, writings, dance, drama, photography, carpentry, crafts, love, and love. We enlist every instrument, acoustic, electronic, every so-called gender, race, sexual preference, every person as beings of sound to acknowledge their responsibility to uplift the consciousness of the entire fucking world. Any utterance unaimed will be disclaimed, will be maimed. 2 rappers slain.
All right. And that was some of those colorful metaphors that people that people use.
Sorry about that.
But you got his point. Sometimes you have to be profane in order to be profound. All right. I'm going to ask Brother Bill. I'm going to skip the next 2, Muta and Linton Kwesi Johnson, just in the respect of time. And I'm going to ask Brother Bill, if you're ready, we'd like to go with Straight Out Scribes. Brother Bill, are you ready with Straight Out Scribes?
Not yet, but I'm coming. Hang on just a second.
All right.
And on we go.
All right. Thank you. Can't hear it though.
Okay, hang on. Okay.
All right.
One more time.
All right. Cool. And John, stand by. Pick out one.
I'm gonna start a revolution in my soul.
Gonna seize control of all I have within me.
Anything to make me whole
Or high.
or both. I'm gonna start a revolution.
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 I'm gonna start a revolution in my soul.
Greetings, my name is Kajabu.
I'm V.S. Chochezi.
And together we're
Straight Out Scribes.
And we're here to share some vibes with you and thank Madeline for inviting us. It's good to see all my friends I haven't seen in a long time. Clark, Athena, everybody. And we've been doing poetry for about 20 years. And it's my daughter. I'm the mother. And we haven't been together for a long time, so hit it, Sonata.
I was born an African. I was born an African. I was born an African in America. And people constantly remind me. And people constantly remind me. And people constantly remind me. Now that's just too frequently. But just as soon as I stand up, but just as soon as I stand up, but just as soon as we stand up and proudly claim the heritage that rightfully belongs to us, those same people scream and shout, stamp their feet, and madly pout, why can't you just forget the past? Now that you have affirmative action and welfare at last, please, oh please, just blend in and be good and happy Americans. Walk American, talk American, buy American too. Just get into the swing of things, you know what to do. Even though your majority lives in overcrowded cities in fear and poverty all over this country, why can't you just forget the past now that you have civil rights, welfare, and affirmative action at last? Well, maybe it is just because what we really need is some truth, justice, peace, and some R-E-S-P-E-C-T.
Come on now.
All right, all right. That's yeah. That's what we're. That's one of the dynamic duo poetress that will be helping us out on Saturday and also on Friday. First Friday, we're going to do First Friday. We're going to have some poetry on there as well. Brother John, you held up your book. You have a short one that you can give us, and then I'm going to ask Baba Jeff to play the Maccabee one, and we'll close out. We're going to be pretty much on time. Go ahead.
Yeah, I got one short one. Just bear in mind, this was written years ago during another frame of mind, but this one's kind of universal. It's called The Love Factor. A weapon of mass affection with unimaginable power to impact hearts and change minds, as shockwaves of love reverberate around the world, destroying the influence of the negativity, crippling our lives while covering the earth with a global fallout of healing clouds filled with millions of tiny droplets of love that become cloudbursts of pure and unfailing love, to quench the fires of hatred, to transform the heart of humanity, to make peace on earth and goodwill towards men a reality rather than a fantasy. I dream the impossible dream. I know it sounds crazy, but can you imagine a weapon that renovates rather than devastates, a weapon that heals rather than kills, a weapon that can restore life rather than destroy life? Have you ever imagined a world without evil, a world without tyrants, warlords, and corrupt politicians, a world of people ruling themselves and not each other, a world of people who would rather be givers than takers, where poverty and homelessness has never existed, where selfishness and greed can find no room or need to exist? The love factor is just my imagination running away with me. Imagine a global explosion causing a nuclear winter of love, a season of melting the defensive walls around our hearts, a season of understanding, forgiveness, and reconciliation, a time of repairing the twisted thinking and broken values that perpetuate so much injustice all over this planet, a season of fair and equal distribution of God's resources, a time of debunking, dismantling, and demolishing the ridiculous rationalizations and insane justifications for war. along with the pettiness of prejudice that keeps us apart. A time of bridging the gap between the haves and have-nots so that equality can be a reality between every nationality. The love factor is my desire for love to ignite every heart. We already have it. It's in us. We just need to set it off. And so I continue to pray for and dream the impossible dream. I continue to allow my imagination to keep on running away with me. I keep dreaming of a love that shatters every hard heart, that puts a stop to the terrible things we do to each other and destroys the walls of separation that keep us apart. Then, and only then, will we have heaven right here on earth. But again, the love factor is just my imagination running away with me.
All right. All right.
Yes, well done, John.
And you know I love the Temptations. So
Yeah. And Baba John is gonna be with us Friday night, first Friday.
He's gonna be on with First Friday. Give thanks, give thanks. Well, it's 6:30, and I made this next one that's coming up. You know, those of you that see some of my Facebook posts, I made this for Mother's Day last year, and so you're going to see some family members and just some mother images. This is one of my favorite dub poets. His name is Maccabee. He's from the UK. And Baba Jeff, thank you. And thank you, Baba Bill, and thank you all of you poets, Brother Katabazi, Sister Judy, Sister Sugar D, Mama Darnisha, all of you, Brother Sudi Ali, thank you for sharing, pouring out your heart in those poems. And so we're going to close out with Maccabee, Mother of Civilization.
Well, Maccabee has come to the realization that there's been an exclusion of the mother of civilization from the creation equation. Discrimination from generation to generation with no explanation. Subtraction and division from that natural equation leads to confusion and illusion. Manipulation, fabrication, and falsification of the origination of creation. Yaga yow. Them say the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. So where has the woman gone? It's the Father, the Son, and the Mother. Without no mother, no son can born. Why would they want to leave out the mommy? Makes no sense to me. And replacing mommy with a dopey is a big, big conspiracy. Oh, mother of civilization. Oh, queen of the universe, they try to take you out of the equation. I said that can't work. In her lies the truth of creation. Yes, she has given birth. They try to take you out of the equation, disrespecting Mother Earth. When it says in the beginning, let us make man. Who is the us, them a talk? It's the Father, also the Mother. Queen Omega still has my heart. When it says create man in our image, where does this hour come from? Children must look like their parents. Some look like daddy and some like mom. Oh, mother of civilization. Oh, queen of the universe. They try to take you out of the equation.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Sugar D, would you announce what's going to happen with us on Friday? And then Sister Judy, would you announce what we're doing on Saturday? Go ahead. Go ahead, Sugar D.
Okay, on Friday night, it's going to be our, we'll say, First Friday. And we asking you to join us and come and do a spoken word. Or on a Friday night, I got some people already lined up to come. And we're going to have a good time. We're going to have fun. And it's going to start at, I believe, 6 o'clock your time. And it'll be 9 o'clock my time, but I'm ready. I'm ready to stay up late. I'm ready to have some fun. We'll have some games also. I want you to pay attention to stuff and make sure you're on your P's and Q's, because there'll be things that we're going to do throughout. And I'll be asking you at the end, did you see certain things or did you hear certain things? So, hey, we got a good lineup. We're ready. and we're gonna have some fun on First Friday.
All right, all right. And thank
Is
you for
that
that.
Zoom going to be with Wose?
I'm sorry, it's going to
It's
be,
gonna be Wose First Friday, and it's gonna be on the Black Knowledge Matters a Zoom
Okay.
Friday night, First Friday, this Friday.
yeah. And Sister Judy, would you announce what's happening on Saturday? What's going on?
Well, hello. Oh, okay, I'm coming in. Yes, we're so happy to see you all and thank you. Welcome. Glad you joined us this evening, but on Saturday we have lots of fun planned. Minister Imhotep has arranged, he's putting together a poetry night, a spoken word and poetry night. It begins, I believe, at 6 p.m. on 6 p.m. PST time.
Yes.
Which is 9 o'clock Eastern here in Atlanta. But again, we'll all be ready. We're late night people here on the East Coast. But there are several different artists, and I'm going to turn it over to Minister Imhotep to let us know a few of those artists,
Okay.
if you will.
All right, so we're going to have, of course, and we saw Straight Out Scribes. We're going to have Straight Out Scribes. We're going to have Brother Marvin X from the Bay Area. We're going to have Brother Kinara Sankofa, and we're going to have Brother Katabazi and some others that we didn't get to tonight. And you know, we this is just the poetry. I don't know. I'm giving the message on Sunday. I might do some poetry then. I don't know. You guys have got me started. You know, so give thanks for all of the participation, and it was a good session. This should be ready on probably tomorrow. If you go out on YouTube and search Black Knowledge Matters for the poetry. I don't know if Poetry Slam, Sister Judy told me Poetry Slam is a competition, but this was a cooperation, and we love the cooperation. Again, thank you, Baba Jeff, thank you, Baba Bill, and all of those that contributed. My friend Katabazi, Judy, Sugar D, and others. I'm glad to see you, Stajabu. You look beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. And we'll see you next time.